それではお時間となりましたのでスタートさせてい
We
た
would
だ
like
き
to
ます。
start this session now. At ACK Talks 2025, we will host 9 talk sessions based on the theme 2050 A Vision Towards the Future, with the aim of enhancing our conference functions and building a community centered on the culture and the arts. We will explore new perspectives and value for the years ahead. Together with leading figures in modern art, we will reflect on the new values for the future through discussions on themes such as art and everyday life, reinterpreting culture and sustainability, and the relationship between humans and technology.
について思いを巡らせるためのトークプログラムを展開いたします。ここからは株式
Next,
会社
with the
Jintec
corporation of Jintec Corporation, we will present the talk Unearthing Cultural Layers. We are joined by Yozo Yamaguchi, curator of Kyushu-ha Exhibit held here at ACK venue, and Mika Yoshitake, US-based curator, independent, Justin Jesty, associate professor in the Department of Asian Languages and Literature at the University of Washington, and our moderator, Hiroki Yamamoto, cultural researcher and associate professor at Jesty Women's University. Together, they will shed light on Kyushu-ha, an art movement that has long remained under-recognized. All right. So this is the first talk of the 15th November. I'm not really, I think I'm going to have a good day, good time. My name is Hiroki Yamamoto.
アシスタントという形でいろいろ学びつつ、外からこうあれこれ意見を言いつつ。
We would like to discuss from an outsider's perspective, and I'm sure if you haven't looked at the exhibits, please go take a look at them after this talk, and you may gain a new perspective.
最初に今回のテーマを僕なりにどう考えているかっていうことなんですけど。
I would like to talk about how I perceive this theme.
戦後
And this is about the avant-garde after the postwar era in Japan, including Kyushu-ha. And I would like to discuss about how people would like to exhibit and even sell their artwork. So we would like to talk about the art market of Kyushu-ha as well. We have to look at it from a very multifaceted way. So the artists, curators, researchers, all of them are creating this network together, and hopefully this is going to be more visual and be explored in Japan and globally as well. So we are going to have a quick presentation, and then we would like to have a discussion in the second half of this session. But this is more like a free talk. We don't have a real script of what we need to talk about, and we would like to pay respect to the Kyushu-ha and then have a free discussion. So first, can I have a quick introduction from the 3 panelists? Start from Yamaguchi-san. Hello, my name is Yamaguchi. And from last year, I have been working as an independent curator. Before that, I was in the Fukuoka City Museum. And totally, I was working as a curator for 30 years, and then now I have become independent. So now I am going to be the main curator for this Kyushu-ha exhibit. All right, so let's go to Yoshitake-san next. Can you hear me? Just a quick introduction of yourself. Hello, everybody. I'm connecting from Los Angeles. My name is Mika Yoshitake. And because I am in Los Angeles and I am mainly working on post-war art and
主に最初から紹介し、あと村上隆。
I work also with Takashi Murakami, Yoshitomo Nara, and Yayoi Kusama as well. And I plan different types of events at museums. And for a long time, I have been curating at Blum, but now I am an independent curator as well. Thank you, Mika. Let's go on to Justin-san. Good morning. I am the associate professor at Washington University. My name is Justin Jesty. And regarding Kyushu-ha, The reason why I started to research on Kyushu-ha is because there's this Japanese translation of this book, and about 1/3 of this is talking about Kyushu-ha. So I would like to also talk about that interview for this book. All right, thank you, Justin. So, can you talk a little bit about your activities and also about this theme of Kyushu-ha Exhibition today? Let's start from talking about Kyushu-ha. So, Yamaguchi-san, this is your expertise. Can you also touch on this exhibit here at the ACK venue? Sure. So, when I was at the Fukuoka City Museum, I would plan for modern art exhibits, and then also I was doing some research on Kyushu-ha because there's my predecessor, Raiji Kuroda. He went to the Asia Museum, so I just succeeded his work. So in 2015, I did this book of Kyushu-ha, and so this is a compilation. In 1981, we first had this exhibit of Kyushu-ha at the Fukuoka City Museum, and then it talks about the entire exhibit itself, and then also we have more new material, and then we have also renewed the calendar as well, and then we also included some of the industrial magazines as well. So Kyushu-ha exhibits is here in the venue, but back then, like in the 50s and 60s, when they had the original Kyushu-ha starting ones, we don't have too many, but we have the post-Kyushu-ha type of artwork in this venue. So I'd like to talk about what kind of arts that the Kyushu-ha people were making. So most of this is owned by the Fukuoka City Museum. Maybe sometimes they are owned by somebody else, but normally it's Fukuoka City Museum. And this is the leader, Sakurai Takami. It's usually in a darker tone. This is from the Fukuoka City Museum. Ochi Osamu. Ochi Osamu. There are really not many pieces that are still existing. It's really difficult to look back into history for Ochi. But these are still the existing ones. And currently, Tokyo Art Museum has this. And the most known artist is Kikuhata Mokuma. So there is one art piece, only one that is left when he was part of the Kyushu-ha. And then this Dre case that uses this 5 yen coin. This is also well known. This is by the Tokyo Modern Art Museum, 1983. And Yamauchi Jutaro. This is also from back then. He has quite a lot of them still surviving. Matano Mamoru, Owari Takeshi. Matano Mamoru, this person was originally a poet. He was not an artist or a painter, so to say. But he started painting with the influence of the Kyushu-ha, such as Hakurai. And Owari Takeshi, I think he is using some sort of an etching acid onto metal plates. And also, from the feminism point of view, Tabe Mitsuko is being featured more. There were 3 female artists in Kyushu-ha. Tabe is one of them. So, and in the 60s, now she started to make some pop art as well. And then we had this Jinko Taiban. This is owned by the Kumamoto City Museum. Obana Shigeharu. This is not by the Fukuoka City, but he was living in Okeha Chikugo. And then he is using this local scenery as his theme. And sculptor Miyazaki Junnosuke. These are some of the things he made when he was in the Kyushu-ha. So he started from 2D, and then from the late 60s, he would move on to 3D wooden objects, and then until his last years, he would continue to make that 3D objects. We have Terada Kenichiro, Saito Hidesaburo, Taniguchi Toshio, and Terada and Saito. They are in the 50s Kyushu-ha members. And then Taniguchi Toshio will come in after those two would leave. And then Taniguchi was alive until just a few years ago, but unfortunately his house burnt down, and then he was involved in that. And so that was a quick review of the early days of Kyushu-ha art pieces. But when you think about the Kyushu-ha, you first have to look at the geological location. So, see, compared to Tokyo, it's quite far away. And then in the Fukuoka prefecture, Fukuoka city is that red part there. So in the 1950s, we didn't even have the bullet train that reaches the city. So the Kyushu-ha, when they tried to come to Tokyo, they would have to take the local train for more than 20 hours to get to Tokyo. So there was this disadvantage of being in a very remote area in Japan. So this is very important when you think about the Kyushu-ha of the days. And this is from Akasaka Genpei, one of the images of Kyushu-ha. And this is really symbolizes the point. There's this Kyushu-ha bottle of alcohol, and then underneath it says Tokyo. So it's like he's smashing Tokyo with the alcohol bottle, because Kyushu people are known for drinking a lot of alcohol. So that the image it's really symbolized here. So, talking about the Kyushu-ha activities, if you just look at the art pieces, it's really difficult to understand. You also have to look at their art movement as well to see what kind of a group they were. So back then, it was not like you're smashing Tokyo with their the bottle, but they created the atelier called the Blue House, and then those people that are like Terada Kenshiro, Kuroki Yoji, and those people would join the Kyushu-ha later. And Terada and Kuraki are from that poet group. And they were close to that poet group. So they would be, Terada and Kuroki would be creating the cover page for their magazines. And Sakurai and Obata, they were the poets that would be writing the poem inside. So that is the very origin of the Kyushu-ha in 1954. So this is like the prehistory of Kyushu-ha, how they become what they are. And Ochi Osamu, created this a piece called A Child That Loves Mambo. So he was only 19 years old, and he was Taro Okamoto would highly praise this piece. So Sakurai went to see this from Tokyo, and then he really loved the style of Ochi Osamu. So this is where really the story of Kyushu-ha takes off. Now Ochi Osamu, back then, before he was exhibiting in Mika event, he saw this Vogue magazine and said, I can even do this myself. Now, well, later on in the interview he said that. But so he looked at this and said he can do this too. And that's how he got into this art world. So from this serendipitous meeting of Sakurai and Ochi Osamu, they started this persona exhibit together with the artists and the painters and the poets. So this is using the outside wall of the municipal government building. So this is how Kyushu-ha was made. And then they do this exterior or outdoor exhibit. And you see that there are more artists that are involved in this. Now, why are they always doing this exterior exhibit, outside exhibit? It's because it's hard to believe, but back then it was very popular to have this public call for artwork, and of course that tendency was stronger in local areas. So Kyushu-ha was trying to think of a new way to exhibit, especially Sakurai was thinking about these grand schemes. So because they don't have this tradition of avant-garde, they had to create some kind of system on their own. And then they were also trying to revitalize the local artists' activities. So there's this Yomiuri Independent. They wanted to do the same in Kyushu, so they created this Kyushu Independent. So this is where the artists themselves would organize the tenants, which is a very rare thing back then in the 1950s. So there was Haryu Ichiro who came to look at this, and Haryu Ichiro is going to be a good partner ever since to Kyushu-ha. So you can see how they are co-creating art pieces as well. And these are they had very independent, strong characters, but also they were doing co-creation as well. So they would do these exhibits in Tokyo. Although it takes 20 hours to get to Tokyo, from time to time they would leave their hometown, go to Tokyo, and then make exhibits. So there are three pillars of context to understand the Kyushu-ha. So these three are really intertwined. This is the reason why Kyushu-ha became such a big movement. It was an accelerator for them. So number one, it has an international context. Unformed came into Japan. So like Ochi was saying, there were arts that people will say, I can do that too. And number two, national context. The Yomiuri Independent started, and then there was this room for avant-garde to be accepted, but that was only in Tokyo. And then number three, local context. Like I said, there was this the Mitsui Mike labor dispute. So there was this social movement. So with all these three together, Kyushu-ha became such a strong movement, although it was very short-lived. Now, they would create a movement in local cities, Kyushu, and then they would go to Tokyo to show off. So at Kyushu, they didn't have this tradition of the avant-garde, but because they had that labor dispute, they were able to actively work. And like I said, Kyushu-ha, by this time they had a very strong independent color, so it was not like a group activity, but it was a combination of strong, unique artists. So the content of their activities as a group started to change in the 60s. So that's it about the Kyushu-ha and its history. Right, it was really great to go through this history. And this is not a plug or anything, but I love this presentation. And I also want to just jump in and talk a little bit. But as a moderator, I have to moderate this. But rather than going through presentation, I'd like to just quickly have a group discussion. So Yoshitake-san, Justin-san, do you have any questions to Yamaguchi-san? So first, I would like to kick it off. I'm sorry, I'm like not a good moderator here, but like you said, Yamaguchi-san, Kuroda-san, from the 80s to the 90s, you are still running these Kyushu-ha exhibits, but the Kyushu-ha visibility or this awareness is still known as avant-garde from the regional cities. So Yamaguchi-san, you've seen the early days of Kyushu-ha, and you know it was not known well even in Kyushu, and then there are not many art pieces that are alive. And compared to that, currently Kyushu-ha is known more, and then in the avant-garde history, more people started to recognize this. So when you try to make an exhibit, what kind of differences are there compared to the early days, like in the 80s, when you started to do these Kyushu-ha exhibits? And then from there, we can move on to Yoshitake-san and Justin. Right, thanks for the question. Regarding the Kyushu-ha exhibits, when I was in the museum of Fukuoka City, I think we've done it 4 times during my career. And, you know, because we would have this, the evergreen type of an event, and it was more for my personal research about Kyushu-ha. And from time to time, the artists, you know, they were all alive back then, like in the 80s. So, like Sakurai-san, I would go to Ochi-san and Kikuhata-san. We would go there and talk about the history. And then I would utilize that, reflect that onto the exhibits. So the exhibits were in a chronological order, and then sometimes there are some that we couldn't feature. So I wanted to try to make it clear about the chronological order so that you can see the entire storyline of how Kyushu-ha came to be and then evolved. So how should I call it? It's not like evolution, but it's more like a flow. So it's an episode of the artists, and then from the interaction between the different artists. By including that essence into the exhibit, it makes the art pieces more lively. Because if you just look at the art piece alone, then it just looks like a copy of Unformel. And some people may misconstrue that as like a copy of some other movement. But it was more of a limitation of a regional city. And then also they have this context of the local cities as well. Right. So it's about how to show that context, and that is exactly the how this exhibit at ACK is also created. So you would use some text explanation right alongside the artwork as well, which makes it even more fun to enjoy those artwork. Okay, Yoshitake-san, from your perspective, can you talk about Kyushu-ha? How do you perceive it? And do you have any questions to Yamaguchi-san? Or maybe comments or feedback?
まあ今まで
Right. In America, there was Alexander Mondor's Screamer Gets the Sky, 1994. I think that was the first time I saw Kikuhata Mokuma's pieces in the catalog, but it's been 3 decades since then. And
こう九州派を位置づけてきているのかすごく興味深い。
I was really interested to see how Kyushu-ha was positioned in the world of art history. In Japan,
重要な
it's a very important key art movement in terms of anti-art. But when you think about it in the global context, as an anti-art, I understand it's a big movement, but you have to rethink, reinterpret it.
まあこう世界的なコンテクストを作るときに
So when you try to create this global context,
重要性を感じて、あと
you have to see which parts are important, which parts are unique of Kyushu-ha. And I'd like to talk with Yamaguchi-san on how to discern where the unique points are. Right, so looking at the current situation, it's not mainstream. It's more like the outcast from mainstream. And then instead of looking at the mainstream, like Europe and America, then it's more like the Asia and the South America, Latin. But Kyushu-ha was already an outcast from the beginning. And then there's a mainstream Japan, but it was an outcast even from the Japanese art world. And then it's also really closely linked to the time of the society. When you look at modern art, it's also important to look a little bit in history and then see our previous generations were navigating their way through this social movements. It's important to keep that context in mind. So if you look at the market perspective of these art pieces, some people say they are lesser than Tokyo. Maybe it's equal to Tokyo. But these pieces coming up into the market means it shows that there is this context back in the days in those regional areas. It shows the movements of the time. And if you try to position this in the Western art history, it just does not fit as a Lego block. But in Japan, when you don't have this art history, when you add this context of art, then it's interesting to see what kind of odd-looking flowers are going to bloom. So that's how you should perceive these exhibits.
りがとうございます。
Right, thank you.
すごいなんか僕めっちゃシャシャってあれ
And I'm sorry, I'm like always like sticking my nose into the conversation. But Yoshitake-san, you talked about anti-art. You had Kasuga Genpei, Kudo Tetsumi, and
東京をベースにした
many of them are like a Tokyo-based, and there is this actual art piece. But
見せていく
when you try to show that in a global context, as Japanese anti-art, but there is this like the center and the periphery. But like Yamaguchi-san said, there's the Yoshida Yoshie who's done performance all the way to Tokyo. So there was a connection between Tokyo and Kyushu. So there's this connection and disconnect as well. I think it's important to show those fragile ties. Yamaguchi-san, what do you think when you try to show Kyushu-ha to the global? Well, when you look at Kyushu-ha from the global perspective, maybe this is not a direct answer to you, but I first think of this, like moving to different places. So you have to leave your hometown and go to Tokyo or different locations and make your art. So Kyushu-ha went to Tokyo, but they always went back to Kyushu again. And then they are always local. They stayed at their hometown.
そういうところだから
So because of that kind of a location, even if they wanted to make a network with other cities, if you don't maintain it, it will just be severed from the other cities.
なんとかやっていくしかない。
So because they had very fragile ties with Tokyo, they said they have to be independent and then be strong and make everything on their own. But after they make it, they have to, make it aware to the rest of the country, to the world, and then that's how they would start to make those weak ties with other cities as well. So you don't have to necessarily be connected all the time, but because you're severed, you would have this different type of evolution, and then you reconnect again and disseminate. All right, thank you. Justin, any questions to Yamaguchi-san or comments?
ちょっと山本さんの
Yes. Yamamoto-san's proposal, this is part of your question, and I'd like to add on to it. As a researcher, I came from America, and Alexandra Monroe's Screams Against Sky was also a Bible to me. I think it was a great first step to show the Japanese avant-garde. That was the first time I saw it. But Monroe and myself, we both came to Japan, and when we do the interviews,
第一歩から取材することは無理ですね。
it's difficult to take that first step on your own, especially for Kyushu-ha, Kurodaiji-san.
ているかどうか。
We're not even sure if there were any art pieces left.
緊急対象になる
So
ぐらいの基盤まで引き上げたのが市美術
it
館。
was the Fukuoka City Museum, and then the curators of the other museums, curators who would create the foundation to make it worthy of my researches. And most of the what I write in this book is
発掘したもの。
all the things. There are none that are uncovered through my researches. In most cases, those are the city museum and the prefectural museums curators. They have done the first legwork. They would do the They collected first, and then do the first hearing to the artists, and then
団体存在があったっていうぐらいの
then I came in, and when there was a formal name of Kyushu-ha, it was just barely around that period. So that's how I started my research. So all this foundation was made by the local museums. So I think it's a really important infrastructure. And in the late 80s to 90s, the regional avant-garde, the prefectural museum and the city museums were hosting a lot of events where you can see it and the art history now. So you can see how the Kyushu-ha existed back then. I think they've done a really good job in framing the Kyushu-ha and archiving them. Right. So it's Kuroda-san and Yamaguchi-san who are the actual curators who made that foundation. So Yamaguchi-san, yes, exactly. So we call it like a basic research. So it's the first step in the research. And if you do that, lay that good foundation, then there are going to be many more people who are going to come in to do the research, like Justin, and then it makes it easier for them as well. So I think back in the '88, when we made this, Kuroda-san, Leiji Kuroda's work was really important in laying the foundation for more people to come in. Right, Yoshitake-san, let's move on to your presentation. Yoshida-san, you have this global context, seeing Japanese post-war artwork. I think it's a really important work in disseminating Japanese art. So can you discuss a little bit about your career and then how that relates to Kyushu-ha? Please go ahead. Sure. So I'm going to show my screen here. And
先ほどお話しした通り、
so as I explained before,
ここ20
for
年
the past 2 decades, I have been working in the US,
現代美術の
and
アーティスト
I have been trying to feature the post-war modern art artists. I tried to look for venues, galleries
してきましたので、それの
to show that work. So I'd like to pick up some of those pieces, starting from
モカ
MoCA, Museum of Contemporary Art, Los Angeles, and there's this exhibit called Copyright Murakami. We did this under Paul Schimmel as a curator. That was still when I was in grad school, and
新しくその村上さんが
that was when Murakami
という
was
の中で、
using this appropriation as a context. In America, there was this pop art concept where it was okay to appropriate. So I was thinking of how I can show that as the in this chronological history. So I started out from
社会の中で
in this
この日本の中で
in this capitalism world
の中でこういろんな
and large corporates working in the economy. I looked at the history Murakami looked at the history, and then he would capture the nonsense or the humor,
紹介していけるかっていう
and he was trying to show that to the world. So it was more a nonsensical type of research he was doing. And then he would create this concept called copyright. And then he'd run his exhibits. So there are, I'm just going to run through these very quickly. And then I hope I can show you this concept of copyright.
キャリアだけじゃなくてこ
So
う
this is not only his personal career, but in terms of the Japanese copyright movement, he was thinking about
こともある
how this is going to be a social issue. But back then, in 2007, he ran an exhibit, and then
注目を上げて
he gained a lot of attention through this. And then Lee Ufan, this is in Guggenheim. Alexander Monroe created this exhibit, and back then I was still living in Japan, and I was working on my PhD paper
ファンデーションのグラントで
under the Japan Foundation grant, and that was when I had this close ties with Lee Ufan, and then
展覧会につなげていった
through my research work, I was able to connect that to an exhibit. So here,
にもう
these are
もう存在していない作品をもう一度どういうふうに
we were thinking of how to reproduce the art pieces that do not exist anymore. And we talked with artists, galleries, museums for a few years.
モノハっていうのはやっぱりそのオリジナリティっていうものは存在しないっていう、あと彫刻っていうのは
The Monroes say there is no originality and sculptures do not last forever. So with those as a foundation,
とともにどういうふうにこう
they think of how to release these pieces into the world through the passage of time. It talks about the ephemerality.
人間みたいに永遠として続くものでは
So
ない。
it's not something that would continue on like the humanity. We were thinking of how the museums can express this ephemerality in
からコレクションにしたり、
and then we would do the collections, we would do exhibits, and then also think about how the art pieces can exist through the time. And then from there, Lee Yufan
進めてくれて
would
いたのが
drive this forward, which is the Monoha.
2年
So that was in 2012 and at the Blum and Poe.
本当に日本でモノハの、博士論文
I was doing research on Monoha's PhD
していたっていう
paper, and then that turned into the exhibit.
小さい頃から美術手帳は母の美術手帳を全部60年代
And
持って
my mother had this art booklets from the 60s and 70s, and that was where
そうですね。これを
in February 1970 or so, I would look at the Bijutsu Techo and start to have interest, take interest in these things. So when I was in university, I was working on my thesis on Yanagi Yukinori, and that was when I learned about Monoha. And then
大学院で美術史を
I would talk about criticizing the modern art. You know, and it's a big issue in America when you are studying modern art. In Japan,
モダニズムからポストモダンっていう流れで
moving from modernism to postmodern, I was thinking what kind of research I should do, and then Monoha was the subject matter that I chose. So,
通り
as I said before, back then,
もう一度
I was thinking of how you can revive and release art pieces that do not exist anymore.
アーティスト、あ
And
るいはエステートと
I would talk with artists or estates, and
ほとんど知られていなかったので、
and because most of these pieces were not known publicly, so I would have these close discussions with the artists, and I think
仕事をして
I think I've done that for about 10 years, and then this turned into exhibits and books we published. So, like Justin said, in Japan,
研究されていた方、
there are some researchers that have been working on this for so many years and laid the foundation, and we really appreciate the forefathers
も
who did all this legwork. And then
やっぱり作業がすごい
there also this translation from English to Japanese is really important. So
に作家の特にライティ
so
ングを
especially it was really important. We were able to turn all the Japanese words of these artists into English so that we can spread it to the world. And Monoha,
ワシントン DC
in Washington, D.C., there's Hanshifon Museum.
始めて
And this is when I started to work as a curator there.
実は森美
So-
術館で片岡真美さんが
Kataoka Mami planned, it's called Ai Weiwei at Mori Museum. And then it was a tour exhibit at Hansfon.
ショーンのコレクショ
And
ンと
we,
作品をこう
we were thinking of how to have this interaction between Ai Weiwei and the artwork that we had at Hansfon. So this was a very transnational.
を
It was not just an
全部
featuring one modern artist, but
いろんなこう国際的な
we were trying to show in this transnational context of how to display items. So, in terms of art history, I think this is a really important or interesting topic. But Ai Weiwei
コンストラクティビズム、まあ
is from constructionism, and then it also features the 1960s minimalism as well. And in that context,
こう対応できる
it can interact with the collection of the museum as well.
そしてその後、まあ
Now, we move on to Kusama Yayoi, Infinity Mirrors.
6
This
か所
is it was a 6-stop tour in North America, and the theme here was the mirror room
ポピュラーな
is popular globally, but
ができたのかっていう、
it talks about the history of how a mirror room came to be.
でそれは本当にこう近く彼女に
And
とって
for Kusama, she went from net painting to accumulation.
こう
This is
エンバイロメント環境として作っていく
so
中
she would create this environment, and then she would use mirrors to multiply this and create her vision. So that was there is this story behind her work, and then through the exhibit we were able to release this.
研究していく中やっぱり
As we do the research,
のゼロとか
Kusama's Zero in Europe, and then there is interaction with other avant-garde group. So that was a really interesting story. So I was
してやっぱり
able to show that in the exhibit as well as part of Kusama's history. So it's not just showing popular art of Kusama, but we wanted to show how
アメリカそしてヨーロッパとの
she had this ties with Japan, US, Europe, and then show how she was a unique one-off type of an artist.
展覧会を企画していきました。で、まあ
Now, after that, we move on to Paragon.
ハーシュフォンで
This was something that I wanted to do at Hanshfon, but the museums are sometimes difficult. You know, we have we have different priorities, so to say. And in Los Angeles, we released this, but
日本の80年代90
this
年
is Japan's 1980s, 1990s.
のアーティスト
There are 25 artists and then musicians also in this exhibit. And it was called Gallery Paragon. So we have Fuji Masami from the 80s,
まず最初に名前を
who
使って
first, we used Masami's name and used that as an inspiration to run the exhibit.
枠をどういうふうにこうデリダから来るんですけれどもこう作品っていうのは中心
So these artwork, rather than the center object, we looked at the framing, and then also it was a modern art from Japan and featured in America. So we had to think about the framing of how to present this, but we were able to create a really strong concept.
一種の
And
タイトルとして考えてきました。
That was one of the titles. The Paragon was the title to epitomize that. So in the 80s, there is this Prism of the Reals. We had this exhibit in Tokyo Shinbijutsu Museum.
10年代
And
昭和天皇が
in the 80s, when the Showa emperor has deceased, and we switched the emperors, that was the origin of this movement. And
をポリティカルなそういうコンテクストの中
it would look at the Japanese art pieces from the political context and also look at it from the overseas perspectives
問題接点
to
を
see how they are addressing different types of problems that you don't see in the Western world.
した、考えをでいつもその
And
モーフォロジカル形態的な
morphological, the,
でもある
they are similar in their visuals, but when you compare them, you can see that their basic the problems they're addressing are different. So, for example, this is Yukinori Yanagi, Study for American Art. This is directly appropriating Jasper Jones' Three Flags, but you can see how
いる部分があるので、
Yanagi is appropriating in two different ways. It is criticizing the U.S., but
っていうのを二重
it's also it's criticizing both the country of America and the society of America. And this art is in the Whitney Biennial. It was shown in the Whitney Biennial, so that was also an important location. And the Three Flags is one of the collections of the Whitney. So
っていうのを
that history is also very important in interpreting Yanagi's pieces.
こう意味で作家たちをこう紹介していく中でいます。あとはまあ
And
80
also 80s, 90s.
では
In America, David Sally was very prominent. And then Tadanori Yoko,
品をこう一緒に
you
考
would
えていく中
think about them, compare and contrast them. And this is Nakahara Kodai, Aaron Worm.
なんか
Aaron Worm was not in the exhibit, but as a background knowledge,
ユーモアを
we were trying to show how humor is connected to different art pieces, or maybe they have this
いきました。
they have the differences as well. And
すごく私は興味のある
personally,
まあ音楽、特にノイズ
there are some music and noise and experimental music that I was interested in.
アルバムカバー
And also, I was interested in album covers and art. And Otake Shinro was also already known and popular. So Yamatsuka Ai and Bordance and Otake's collaboration.
あとやっぱりそういう音楽の
So I was interested in the connection between art and non-art objects.
でまあ最近
Now, if you look at recent, at LACMA, we had Yoshitomo Nara's exhibit. And this was also featuring music
接点となった展覧会
as one of those connections between art and non-art. And then this also gives you a unique perspective. See, here we created an album,
テンゴっていうバンドが
but the band called Yoratengo was Nara's favorite. They are from the 60s and 70s, or they were re-recording the music from the 60s and 70s, and then created this kind of a album. So we've done that in Yoshitomo's exhibit. Now, New York
ボタニカルガーデン
Botanical Garden.
ですね。
This
ここ
is
で
here. We had Kusama Yayoi's
彫刻
outdoor sculpture exhibit.
で、M プラス香港で
This is M Plus Hong Kong. We had the
展覧会が
we had the retrospective exhibit, and the latest exhibit is about climate change in Hammer Museum in LA. We featured 25 artists. In that, we had Ikeda Ryoji and Nara Yoshitomo and Mika Tajima, who lives in New York. They are there.
ありがとうございます。
Right, thank you very much, Mika. So, this is another context from our first topic. We talk about Monoha to Paragon, and this is we had the Jidai no Prism exhibit in Shinbijutsu. Thank you very much for covering this broad range and how you were showing that to the US. And I have so many questions, but let's go from Yamaguchi-san and Justin first because you are the featured panelists. Yamaguchi-san, what do you think? Any questions or comments to Mika?
非常に興味深く
Right. I was listening with strong curiosity and interest in your stories. So starting from Monoha,
伺いたかった
I wanted to ask you, I think reproduction of art and translation,
言葉が大事
I think you said it's important to carry those words, the Japanese words of the artist into English, but I'm sure you had a lot of hardships there, but what were some of the troubles or like the hurdles that you had to overcome? Right.
自身も、再制作をするっていう、
So
最初から
the certificate, you know, in the 60s, when you first create this art piece,
ってきたものではなかった。
it's not like they were thinking of reproducing the art later on. So when you do the exhibit again in 2012,
なんかどういうふうに
then you would have to think about how to,
ギャラリーだけじゃなくて
and also not only for the galleries, you have to collect them in the museums as well. So, for example, if the artist is alive, then
再提示、
you can reproduce, recreate,
しなくちゃいけないの
but
で、
there should be limits to that reproduction. And
コレクションしていくときに
when you collect those artwork, you shouldn't have so many copies. So
規制しなくちゃいけない
you。have to have some sort of regulations, limitations. So that was probably the most difficult task, because the artists themselves had to think about this for the first time. They weren't even expecting about this. So that's an issue of the market itself as well.
ただコンセプトだけじゃ
So with the concept alone, it doesn't work. You
コレクションに入っていくっていうの
have
が
to think about how to protect that concept and then see how the museums can collect those copied art pieces. I think that was the most difficult part. Right, thank you.
じゃあジャスティンさん
Justin, how about you? So just one thing I wanted to comment. You talked about translation of the artist's words. And maybe because I'm looking at this as an outsider, and maybe from the curators you have a different perspective, and maybe this is that more of a linguistical thing, or is it about how to translate more of the cultural aspect? Which one is more difficult? Yamaguchi-san, what do you mean by translation? What?
その翻訳
Yes, in terms of translation, there are two aspects. Of course, you can have this verbal translation, but that doesn't work, right? You have to explain the concepts for people who don't understand Japanese culture. So just a direct literal translation wouldn't cut it. And then also, because the art piece is also a reproduction, so there are like two different barriers for people to understand. That's why you have to add an extra layer of explanation. Right, Justin, comments? Yeah, it's not a question, it's more of a comment. And also,
話したい内容
this is connecting to my presentation that's coming up. But
の戦後の美術
when you look at post-war Japanese art history, then we tend to feature the groups as the protagonist. It's the main feature, you know.
私も含めて
So that including me, we haven't broken into the individuals. We are still featuring the groups. So in contemporary modern, I think it starts from about 80s. Kusama Yayoi, Ono Yoko, those two are special. But Murakami Takashi, Nara Yoshitomo, and Yanagi Yukinori, and Morimura
安政
Yasumasa are somehow they are individual artists, right? They are strong as individuals. And
まあ一つ吉武さんがご企画
so there's one exhibit Yoshitake-san has created, Paragon. I think that has really broken the barrier of us always featuring groups, and that was really interesting to see that through the context of art history, and also the global warming, and you would have the theme, and then
現代的な
the Japanese artists would they were making some important comments on those themes. So I think that's a new movement as well. Thank you.
ありがとうございます。吉武さんは
So
今
Yoshitake-san, just like what Justin said, Murakami and Nara, they are Kusama as well. You have the curation as the individuals, and then there's this group of Monoha and then Paragon. So when you hear Justin's comment, do you have any responses?
考えはありますか？
そうですね、やっぱ
Right.
りどうしても回顧展とか
When we do retrospective exhibits, then of course you would define a theme in there, but
広い
I
こう
think
展覧会の企画の仕方は
there are many more interesting ways to do the exhibit plannings. So you start from exhibit briefs, and you would give a theme like climate justice.
そういう、すごく難し
So
いのがやっぱり
what's difficult is the artists don't usually they aren't bound by these themes. Usually they want to be free, but
例えば奈良さんとか
for example, Nara or Rikeda Luis or those famous artists,
こうコンテクストに
they would
方が
they thrive more by jumping into those themes, and
その自分
rather than just doing things alone with no themes. I think by adding those themes and constraints, that adds another layer of depth to their work, which I'm really happy to see. So
最初からそういう
So
ことを
it's
考えてただ
not like I was thinking of that kind of an interaction. Of course, I was thinking about theme, but
初めて出る
this
作家からもっとこうすごく有名な作家っていろいろ
there are it was an exhibit where we were able to mix a lot of different artists, the upcoming ones all the way to famous ones. So
コンセプトが先に出てくるような
I would like to continue to plan exhibits that have these international themes by also protecting the artist's color as well.
っていうの
So
がすごく難しいんです
it's really difficult to have this synergy, but if you can pull it off, you really it's exhilarating. It's also it's a win-win situation for both sides as well, and you'll be able to continue that onto next events as well.
ありがとうございます。
Right.
じゃあ
Thank you, Yoshitake-san. Justin, I would like to turn the table to you, but
したいことが
Justin, I think you want to talk about this individual versus groups as well. Justin, please take it away.
準備してな
Right.
い
I don't have any slides to show you, and Yamaguchi-san has talked about the Kyushu-ha already, and there's nothing else I can add to Yamaguchi-san's presentation. So I'd like to skip forward and talk about,
ちょっといい
there are, sorry, I would like to talk about one or two points before I move on to.
ことなんですけれども
So it's about what we have been discussing now. Yoshitake-san, you mentioned how the artists tend to hate being constrained in specific themes. I can sort of relate to that feeling, but what the artists hate more is to
用だと
be called like the symbol of a certain era. They really hate it. They say they really are indifferent about being like the figure of that era.
私がこの九州派について取材してる
And
時は
when I was doing the interviews and research for Kyushu-ha, I knew about this concept, but
超えることはできなくて、
I wasn't able to break the mold, which is that's just my mistake back then. But in the future,
やっぱりまだまだ語り尽くしてない。
I think there are more episodes that we haven't uncovered, things that we haven't, or artists or art pieces that we still haven't shed light on. I wanted to say there are so many of those that we still have to discover.
2つのちょっと
So
事例を。
there are two case examples. One is Tabe Mitsuko. When I met her, she was very active, healthy, and she was still actively creating art. And she would go overseas and then run her own individual exhibits, or she would have a collaboration with a musician.
ですごく優しい方で、
And she was a very soft and gentle person. And then she would talk a lot about the episodes with Kyushu-ha. But
にとっての最近の作品を見て
so
もらい
when I wanted her to look at the recent modern art pieces, of course that's just natural when you think about it. Because when I was doing my research, and now I think back, I've done something really bad to her. But in my book, I wrote
以上作家個人を紹介したくて、
I wanted to introduce each individual artist in Kyushu-ha. I was only able to do only 4 people, and then there is only so much you can put in a book. So one artist had only like 6 or 7 pages of explanation, and within that 6 or 7 pages, more than half of that was about Kyushu-ha. But Tabe Mitsuko, from 1970 to now, she has this long history, but I had to boil that down to 1 or 2 pages.
それはもう
And I think
の話じゃなくて、
again, that's not a story about me. It's a story about Tabe-san.
特に90年以後、
And her activities after the 90s were not shown to the world yet. And I wasn't even able to feature it in my book. So we currently have 2 of her pieces post 90s, and then she does have a lot of series after that as well. And Sakurai Takami,
桜井さんが
Sakurai-san,
力っていうか、
he has this very strong expression. He has this fountain of ideas. He would come up with many different pieces.
お家アトリエに
And I went to his studio, to the atelier, and I was really surprised. There was this attic. He would take me to that storage space, and then you can see from wall to wall. It was all so many different pieces, and then
真ん中に
in the center of the room, there was this pile of artwork that was taller than me. So I'm not sure how many hundreds of pieces were just, they were just randomly. It was also like a pile of garbage, and it was just because they had the roof. That was the maximum height of the pile, but that was how he was storing those artworks. So you can see how Sakurai was able to create so many different pieces. So
前作った作品は
So those pieces he made like 10 years, 50 years ago, and he would say, "Oh well, I'm not feeling like it anymore." So that was his lifestyle.
まあこれからの
So
山口さんのそして、
Yamaguchi-san and Jintec and the Kyushu, what is this? Kyushu Bijutsu Shinko Zaidan Foundation. Their activities are going to be ever more important, because when Kuroda Raiji started to do the research on Kyushu-ha, we started from, are there art pieces left, right?
山口
And Yamaguchi-san,
とも
Yamaguchi-san's work is, now I think we're in a great environment because you have done all the foundation. We don't have to see if there are some artwork left. We know that there are. There are so many.
すごい
So
ちゃんとその 桜井高見さんが作った作品の山に
I've seen Sakurai Takami's artwork, the pile. I haven't seen every one of them, examined them, but I think it's important to look at them.
ありがとうございます。
Right? Thank you, Justin. So, I'd like to ask questions and then open the table for discussions. And Justin, you are more of a researcher. And Justin, what you said is, it's not only Sakurai, but not only for Kyushu-ha, but what's difficult is we have Tabe Mitsuko, Sakai Takami, Kikuhata Mokuma, Miyazaki Junnosuke, and those four, they have different demographic and gender. But one thing that's common is their own words or their quotes, their information are left, they're archived. When we try to create history, because we can't create things from scratch, we can't create things from zero, but it's great that we have those archives. And and I think what's difficult is the balance, because those are so many people who are vocal and then some that are quiet. So I think it's important to leave all of your work in verbal form, or maybe some sort of a text form, so that people later on can revive that and research them. And the Kyushu-ha would have their inherent image, and then we tend to exclude the artists that do not really align with those themes. So from Justin's perspective,
してない人たちのことをこう歴史として書いていくっていう。
How do you create the like write about the history of people who don't speak up too much in the public?
So
Yeah. So like Yamamoto-san mentioned, that's right. I started from literature. I started from Japanese literature, like Murakami Haruki, and then.
青春の時は。
So that was when I was younger, but.
作品のみを見てると
If you look at the artwork only, then
つけて
it's difficult to find how to frame them and communicate the value. And I wasn't really confident in those skills because I was
難しいかなわからないんですけれども
I was writing the cultural history. Writing about cultural history, and then I thought the strength of the words or the characters are really strong.
に負けるような存在として本当にその作品だけからの歴史を語るというのはどれほど難しいことだなと。
I think it's really difficult to explain the history of the art pieces just by looking at it. And Yamamoto-san, I think I don't have any solution to Yamamoto-san's questions, but I think the text explanation is very strong, key to live in art history. With the art piece only, it's not going to live very long. You have to have an explanation. Right, Yamaguchi-san and Yoshitake-san, any comments on Justin?
はい。僕
Yes. To be honest,
は大事なんだけど
Kyushu-ha is important, of course, but when you think about the artist's individual history, it's more important of what they were doing post Kyushu-ha. And then we went to Tabe-san and Sakurai-san's atelier, right, Justin? I have been to other people's studio as well. And Ochi-san, Obana-san, they have a lot of work stored in their home. And then that was mainly, many of them were made after Kyushu-ha era. Same for Kikuhata as well. The pieces that they have stored are post Kyushu-ha. And Kikuhata-san was saying, it's about how to create the arch of your life. It's arc of the life, right? So that is your the history or the trajectory of the artist. It's about how to create that and show that to the world. So Monoha is the same. Yoshitake-san's featured Monoha is the same. So it's not just about the Monoha era, but after that, they kept on producing artwork, right? And
個人も見る。
so it's important to look at groups they belong to, but also to look at the individuals, how they live their life. So for Kyushu-ha, we have Justin's book, and then I also made my grand book of Kyushu-ha. So I think we have just about all the history for the groups. So I think now we are in a phase where we should look at each of the individual key players. Right, thank you. So when you think about for Kyushu-ha or Monroe-ha, people tend to focus more on what happened as a group in those eras. But of course, that's important. But in addition to Kyushu-ha, we also look at post-Kyushu-ha in our ACK exhibit. And there, I think it's really important to feature those the trajectory after the Kyushu era. Justin, do you have any comments to Yamaguchi-san's opinion? Any responses? Yeah, I totally agree. We have to move into the next era, next phase.
Kyushu-ha, いわゆる Kyushu-ha
Because Kyushu-ha, the Kyushu-ha is
は何年だったかわからないんです。
I don't know when it ended exactly. Say if it's 63, then they were active for 6 years. And then they were when all the artists were very young, right? They were in their 20s.
ですから、
So,
作家として
as an artist,
もともとKyushu-haのメンバーは
you know, the Kyushu-ha original members,
目標に思っている人は一人もいないですね。みんな批判的ですね。
they were always critical about other Kyushu-ha members.
作家としての
So, as an individual artist, they were hoping the public would see their achievements as a person rather than as a Kyushu-ha. So that is exactly why I agree with Yamaguchi-san. They have much more activities that are deep and fruitful post Kyushu-ha, and I think it's really important to feature that. Yes, I totally agree. Kyushu-ha is their name has lasted for about 10 years, and then people who were involved were those in the young 20s to 30s. They would start out their career, and nobody quit as an artist. They kept on being an artist. So I am curious about their motivation. You know, they were all self-taught. They didn't go to art university, and then they're not in the market. So what was the drive behind them working? And then, you know, also they're not in Tokyo. They're not connected to any other places, but they kept on being an artist. What was the motivation? What was the energy? I think that energy was what created Kyushu-ha.
じゃないですよね。やっぱ個人の力が
So, you know, the group was strong, but also the individuals were also strong. They were all, you know, they were enchanted by the magic of art. And then that was probably the drive. I think those things happened in remote areas in Japan as well. All right, I'd like to talk, Yoshitake-san. Of course, as a curator, you have curated, but you are also a critic. You would write text as well. So, do you have any comments on Justin's proposal?
ジャスティンにこうちょっと聞きたい。
Or any questions to Justin?
はい、
Yes.
すごいやっぱり興味深いの
It
が
was really interesting to see how post Kyushu-ha, you know,
がどういうふうに
it was an eye opener to see how the individuals would continue on their careers after they left Kyushu-ha. So when you think about Mono-ha,
皆さん
then
運動として例えばグルー
as
プ
an art movement, when you think about it as a group,
マニフェストとかそういう宣言は何もなくて
there is no manifesto or a declaration, but it was more of a phenomenon.
宗派はちょっともう少し
And Kyushu-ha, I think, is a little bit different context, but
先ほど話していた通り
like I said before,
活動を深く見ながら
you should look deeply into each individual artist's activities.
なんていうんです ですか。英
And
語では
in English, you would call that
ダイアクロニック、数字的に見ていくの
you
と、
you would look at the diachronic and synchronic ways.
起こった問題っていうのをこう同時に見ていく、それをどういうふうに
So
こう交差していく
you would have to look at the
大きなコンテクス
the
ト
intersections of those two
できるのかっていうのをい
thoughts.
つも
And I tried to think about how to show that in my exhibits.
九州
So
派の一人一人のその制作が、
the art production of each of those artists in Kyushu-ha, I'd like to see how they kept on going in their career post Kyushu-ha. I'd like to really learn about them. All right, thank you very much, Yoshitake-san. So you're talking about the vertical line and the horizontal line and where they intersect. And then Yamaguchi-san, you also said in the horizontal line, there's the local context and the national context, the mainstream context, right? So those are really intertwined together. And then by researching them and doing curation, it's going to be really important in our next phase of Kyushu-ha. Justin, any comments on Yoshitake-san's opinion?
もしパッとなければ
If you can't come up with anything, then I have a final question to the three of you. I have 5 minutes for Q&A. And because our theme is unearthing cultural layers, so this is like a big picture question. And I'd also provide you some time to think about the answers. But
まあ
so
本当に大きな、まあ、すご
my
い
question to you three, this is a grand question. And I'm sure there isn't like a sharp answer to this, but the post-war avant-garde and when you try to unearth those cultural layers,
それをまあ
what is the actual modern day meaning to
思ってます。それぞれ
to this era? There is this way to show them, and then the places to show them, and also is it going to be a research or an exhibit? So currently, we are trying to unearth those cultural layers. Again, what do you think is the modern meaning of unearthing these older layers?
ちょっとフロア
What is the purpose of it? And then I would like to call for some questions from the floor.
全部拾えないかもなんで
And
す
I might not be able to address all the questions, but first, can I ask you three about the meaning of unearthing cultural layers?
文化の地層っていう言い方
Right.
で
Cultural layers,
と思うのはやっぱ
what I feel from that word is Kyushu-ha first. But it has to be local. It has to be something that you have to go there to experience.
インターナショナルとは
So it's totally different from global, international.
そういうのが
but-
今あり得るのか、そしてそれは
First, it's interesting to ask if those things really exist, and then when the non-locals look at that, is it possible to understand that? So first, does it exist or not in this
あの
information era?
コードを持つことがで
And
きる
also, can people, non-locals, understand this? So, I think that's what culture is. And now that we are in this era of transportation, we're able to go to different places.
逆に
So it's possible to see Japanese things globally. You can see global things in Japan. And you can see this difference of culture.
もっとこう土着的なものっていうものがこの日本であるいは海外の
And
他の国々他の地域で
I would like to see if it's possible for those super local things, be it in Japan or overseas, if they can exist or not.
大きな問いですが
Right, Yoshitake-san, what do you think?
そうですね。
Yes,
まあ今おっしゃった通りだと思います。
I agree with Yamaguchi-san, and
インターナショナル。
it's not the global, international, or transnational. Of course, but more than that, this native, indigenous, regional, local,
考えをもっと深く取り入れていくことは
thoughts should be incorporated.
れをごめんなさい。
And
国家性とかじゃなくて本当に
we shouldn't look at it from nationality, but we should look at it more from the individuality.
すごくあと面白いと思いま
I
す。
think it would be really interesting. And also in terms of art history, this system,
美術史を勉強している人たちの中ではすごくやっぱり
for those studying art history, then the Western modern history is very strong. But if you can,
日本では結構もう
you know, in Japan, there are things that we have done that the world hasn't done, like Nakazawa Shinichi, and there are artists who had different perspectives.
現代の意義っていう中では
So, in terms of the meaning of unearthing cultural layers, reframing, reinterpretation is important. And for example, it shouldn't be only about high art, but it should be also about everyday elements that are incorporated into the work. And the way I see it is
もう本当に古代のものとか
anything from the ancient times to
入っていくんですけれども
and all the way to the AI era.
視点で考えていく
I'm trying to think about art from a different perspective, and what is the foundation of doing that? That's the way I think about it from day to day. Sorry, maybe this is not a good answer. No, I think that's a really important thought. So
掘り下げていく
you have to unearth, and then you're saying, both of you are saying you can keep on digging deeper, right? Justin, what about you? Yes. Again, I'm changing focus a little bit, but after you uncover things, what are you going to do about it? About all the information that you get?
もうアーカイブ
So, archives, museums, and
was
libraries, they are a really important infrastructure that we must not forget. And
アートセンター
Yamamoto-san, you created an archive project at the National Art Center Tokyo, and
と私は
for modern art,
芸術祭を研究しているものですけれども
I am researching the Daiichi Geijutsu, and there is no archive of Daiichi Geijutsu, so I'm wondering how our descendants are going to look at it back in the past. So
だと思います
I think also the market is very important, and I'm not dissing anybody, but the market,
市場だけに頼ると
if you rely solely on the market, then
何ていうかな無視される
then
大事にされないのが
people won't take you seriously. People will ignore you. So I think public facilities, institutions are also play a strong role. So Sakurai Takami, when you look at some of the pile of pictures,
てか石油がなんかプシャーっ
it's
と
almost like discovering like an oil well. You have this treasure that's like sitting there.
みたいな感じ
And it also, I almost feel like a tsunami of information coming, and you have to run away. So
ですね
it's not something that you can achieve all on your own.
必要だなと
You need some sort of organization or structure that's going to be the libraries, the museums, that also play an important role in preserving the art. Right. Thank you. So I think the markets are really important, and
批評っていうものとかいろんなアクターでやっぱり
there are many different actors, players, and they need to create a strong network. So I'm talking about after we uncover information, I think we have to have a strong network together. So
人なのかなと
I think three of you are already doing those kind of activities. So I'm really glad that I was able to talk about this and turn this into a text. And now we only have 4 minutes, but I would like to solicit some questions from the floor. If you have any questions you wanted to ask any one of these panelists, And again, I might not be able to pick everybody, but if you have no questions, then sure, we can just close the session early. Anybody? Okay, there. Please go ahead.
じゃあこれで入ってます入ってますはい非常に刺激的
So
な
thank you very much. It was a very stimulating discussion. I learned a lot. And at the very end of the discussion, you talked about art history
それは
and
絶対視しない方がいいとでその
and you shouldn't take that as an absolute truth. And Justin-san, you also mentioned the importance of archiving. And in the in archaeology or
古物収集とかそういう分野が歴史的にあると思うんですけれども
or collecting ancient relics. In art history or art, I think this is more of an archival work, but
日本の中で
in the world and in Japan, are there such disciplines, and then are there like a lot of information compiled there? Okay, three of you, maybe you can respond to this from your own perspective. Are there archives in Japan, and then studies about them, and then actual results of them?
現状っていうのを
What's the current status? How do you see that archival process? Yamaguchi-san.
アーカイブ
Right. In terms of the act of archiving, I'd like to go a little more primitive. When you think about if you are collecting information and items, sure, at Fukuoka City Museum, we do that. We do collect and archive or store a lot of information of the local, by material, I mean non-art work, such as the letters they would send. And then also we have like booklets and magazines.
情報になってるかどうかそして
So if we have this, if it's open to the public or if it's indexed properly, that's another story. Maybe we have collected the information, but in the National Museum, there's the National Art Research Center, and also there's the National Shinbijutsu. They have the archival function, but they just started out.
公開と
So public information and also indexing, I think we don't have enough manpower. So we weren't able to spare more budget for these elements.
まだまだやる
So I think there's a lot more work left for us to do those indexing for these non-artwork information. Okay. Yoshitake-san, what about you?
アーカイブは
Archiving. Well, it's a really important source of information, and if there weren't archives of the Tama Museum, then I wouldn't have been able to create my own exhibits. So the researchers, such as Minemura-san,
アーカイブもすご
there are archives from those predecessors, and then
特にリュウファンは
Lee Yufan especially has a large archive. I went to the studio every week and look at the material, and we would organize this collected information together. So when we had this Guggenheim retrospective exhibit,
整理してそれで本屋
we reorganized it, and also we made translations of them. So without that work, I wouldn't have been able to create the exhibit. So archives are really important for exhibits, for books, for philosophies of those artists. Everything is important to collect. This is something that it's an ongoing effort. All right, Justin.
はい評判で言え
Yes.
ばなんか
So
日本ではアーカイブ
in Japan, people will say Japan doesn't have too much archive efforts. But like Yamaguchi-san said, there are some activities that are not considered as archiving, but there are a lot of those work that is being done. There's quite a lot.
そういうなんか日本のアーカイブ制度は
So I wouldn't say the Japanese archive system is lagging behind. It's just different.
のも
But sometimes, of course, they carry the title of archive. And in terms of public access,
について日本においては
in Japan, these books
アクセスの役割を
is giving it works as a portal to the archived information, like these books.
何回の図録とか
These are the catalogs of the exhibits, and they are like there are many publications like these. And then in America, when you talk about archiving, then it's more about you have to go to the location to be able to see the content. But in Japan, I think
保存されているものを
the information in the archive is being published. And I think this Japan is ahead in this in this aspect. Right, these published books are that's true. We're ahead of the world, but it's really difficult to make these books. I was only able to create this because I was at the Fukuoka City Museum, so I was able to tell the public that this information is here.
資料の整理どなたがやられた
But then, who did the organization and indexing of this information? It's either Kuroda-san or me. We were doing this as a side hustle.
だからやっぱり
So
人に頼ってる
we are always relying on people. If you have this enthusiastic researcher, he would be doing that in his spare time. That's how we were able to do the archiving. But now I'm away from the Fukuoka City Museum, but can somebody else take over that work? I'm not really sure. So, say, if I ask the Fukuoka City Museum about Kyushu-ha, I am not sure if they can answer my questions properly. Maybe it's going to go around and around and then come back to me again and say, Yamaguchi-san, I know you quit already, but can you tell me where this information is? Then I would have to say, oh, it's in this drawer, it's archived here and there. Right? So it's not really a systemized yet. It's totally up to the person in charge. Right. So it really depends on the person. But you think you should have you should have a budget and create the system to pull out this information, right? So you have to create this network of system to retrieve the information. I see. Okay, I see. All right, so I think we're over time, so we would like to close this session. I'm sure we wanted to talk a little more about this, but and I'm sure there are some afterthoughts. But I'm sure it was a great point to inspire people to think more about this topic. Thank you very much.
じゃあお願いします。
はい、改めまして登壇
Right.
者の皆さん、
So thank you very much for the discussion. The ACK talks will continue tomorrow on and today and tomorrow. We will talk about different sessions, different topics, and then this will also be available online for streaming and archived viewing. So please continue to enjoy ACK talks. Thank you very much.